All right. So here's the deal, folks. You guys know what's happening here. You're seeing another episode of the Make Money and Have Fun show. But here's the deal. I have to issue a disclaimer with this show. I am streaming to you live right now from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And if you've been watching the news lately, you'll know that we got about 8 inches of snow outside. So I'm blaming it on the snow. I could be wrong. But for some reason, my internet is incredibly slow today. I think it's the snow's fault. If you know more than me about technology, just let me know down in the comments that it's probably something else doing it. So if we're lagging, if we're behind, just hang out with us. Be cool. That's the number one rule of the Make Money and Have Fun show is be cool, because we got all kinds of cool stuff happening. And whenever things go wrong, we roll with it over here. So here's the deal. Yesterday, you heard from Mr. Lane Edie was talking about children's books. Today, we're flipping the script a little bit. So we're not going to be talking about children's books today. It's actually going to be almost the polar opposite. And yes, I use the word polar because it is snowing outside. And that, my friends, is as good as the jokes get on this show. So I hope you weren't expecting much more in that case. Now, in that note, we got to get this thing started.
My motto in life is make money and have fun. I'm on a mission to show everyone how to make money, yeah, and have fun. I'm all about making money and having fun.
All right, that's the end of the lag for the rest of this show. Hopefully. If you're with us, you're tuning in, and you're having a great time, give us some thumbs up in the comments. Give us some hearts. Show us some love. Let us know that you're here, you're ready to rock, and you are just having a great time with us. Now, on that note, I got to introduce you to today's guest. So she is actually coming on here. So here's the funny thing. So for those of you that have been following the Make Money and Have Fun show for a while, I noticed something. I kind of messed up a little bit. So I had about 15 or 18 guests on the show. And I was like, wait a second. Every single one of my guests has been a male. It's been a man. And I'm like, man, I got to get some more women on this show. And so I actually did like the inaugural exclusive the first woman on this show was Shadow Gray. She was on about 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. And, she kind of broke the cherry for women on this show, but now I got all these authors lined up, and a lot of them are women, and I might do a women's month. Anyway, we're getting more women on this show because we don't have any judgments here. Everybody is accepted. Everybody is welcome as a part of the Make Money and Have Fun show. So on that note, I need to introduce you to today's guest, Miss Emily Bernath.
Hello.
Emily,
How you doing?
Do I have too much energy for you? Do you mean?
No, it's great. I love it.
All right. Let me know if you need me to tone it down at all.
No.
So, Emily, what is Make Money and Have Fun show? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, especially because I don't have 8 inches of snow out of my window right now. So,
I imagine that must be great.
Yeah.
I'm probably moving to Miami next week.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Well, I'm out here in Salt Lake City, so.
Okay. Do you get any snow at all over there, or what's the story?
We've gotten a little bit, but not maybe a couple inches. That's about it so far.
Okay. I mean, Philadelphia isn't too bad. We get usually 1, maybe 2 snowfalls a year. And then one is like typically like 6-8 inches is like the worst that we would get in a sense. Yeah. So we're not as bad as like Alaska or something like that. Although I still hate the cold, so that's still there. Anyway, we're distracted now. Look, we're going completely off topic here, but anyway, that's the way that this show rolls. So, Emily, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And you wrote a book. Tell us about that.
I did. I wrote a couple of them.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah. So, I mean, originally, math was my first love. If I'm being honest with you, books were my worst nightmare for about 20 years. So the fact that I'm an author is kind of hilarious. They were not my favorite. And I was, told time and time again as a child how bad I was at reading. So I just avoided it. And I found that I was pretty good at math very quickly. And so I used that gift to pursue chemistry in college. So actually, my bachelor's degree is in chemistry. And then I decided that I'm too much of an extrovert to work in a lab my entire life. So I did something different in grad school, and I got an MBA because I had a business minor when I was getting that chemistry degree. And so I was like, well, why not? We'll just continue doing this. So I did that because pretty much everyone that gets a chemistry degree doesn't stop at just their bachelor's. So I knew I needed to do grad school of some kind. And we landed there, and that's what brought me out to Salt Lake City. So I went to the U here and worked as a data analyst for a couple of years. And as I did that, I was data analyst by day and writing by night. And 2.5 years later, found myself signing a book deal for my first book, which is right here. Broken Lenses, the first edition. That came out in 2019. And then we have here Broken Lenses Volume 2. The ebook releases a month from today, so it's not quite out yet. And then the paperback comes out in June. So, yeah.
I love it. I actually love that story so much because it's funny. My whole life, I never read a book. I hated reading. I despised reading as a kid. And then when I was 18 years old, I was actually working as a karate instructor at the time. And one of my coworkers brought me this book right here, right? It's called The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. And I was both thankful and terrified because I'm like, crap, now I have to read this book.
Yeah.
And I felt obligated to do it. But I also really was intrigued by the topic. My whole life I grew up in Catholic school, so I'd only really known like fiction books and stuff like that. But this book was about financial literacy. And when I finally read it, I was like, oh man, I think I just fell in love with reading. And so it's funny that you mentioned that because that's pretty similar to my story, except I hate math. I can't do math at all.
Oh, really? My nickname in grad school was the human calculator. I still love math, but yeah.
Well, I have a digital calculator on my phone.
Yeah, that's what do.
That's what does all my math for me. It's great. I love it. Yeah, I could never get that math thing figured out, especially like algebra. Algebra was like, no fun with that. So anyway, you wrote these books, Broken Lenses. You got 2 versions of them. What kind of, I guess, walk us through like your writing journey with these books. How did they kind of come to be? How did you end up writing them, putting them together? Because I know a lot of people want to write a book, but for whatever reason, never haven't gotten around to it. How would you kind of, what advice would you give to those people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, books were kind of my worst nightmare. So in my mind, I never saw being an author as my path. But I knew one thing that I really wanted to do was be involved in women's ministry. And my passion for women's ministry came from being a survivor of sexual assault. So when I'm not writing books, I do a lot of advocacy work for other sexual assault survivors, and it's very much tied into my why and what I'm doing. So that happened, and I found myself in a pretty dark stage of life and didn't have I wanted a community of women and I didn't have it. And I never really saw the value in it until I needed it most, and then it wasn't there, right? And so a few months later, a woman reached out to me and introduced me to going back into church and, completely just, gave me the community I needed, brought me into a healthier space of people who saw value in me, which is very much the theme of the second book, is how to see value in other people. So that's where the desire came from. I wanted to be that woman for other women, because I fully believe that if something truly changes your life, how can you not want to do that for other people, right? And so that desire remained for about 5 or so years. And I had some women approach me and they were like, Emily, we would like you to think about leading a small group. And I said, awesome. This is what I've wanted to do for, so many years now. And I'm getting this opportunity. And they're like, well, we're not going to tell you what that group looks like. You're just going to have to figure it out yourself. You tell us, who do you want to be there? What do you want to talk about? It's, clean slate. Right. And I realized that day that I was like, well, that when we meet at my house, we're going to have to talk about something, right? So I was like, well, I know what I want to talk about, and I'm going to start writing it. So I started writing with the total mindset that, I was just, all I'm going to do is lead the small group. There's going to be like maybe 10 women in my living room, right? And that was it. And one divine interaction led to another. I found myself, one day talking to this woman, and she was like, you're going to be the next best-selling author. Give me your phone. We're going to help you out here. And before I knew it, I found myself in front of publishers signing a book deal. So, so that's really where it started. And yeah, here we are.
Nice. That's actually, it's so funny because I bring a lot of people on this show who talk about the importance of relationships and connections. And for me personally, I've spent a lot of money just buying, relationships or getting into rooms where, of people with power to find those kinds of things, because it seems like the weirdest thing always happens in this world where it's like, it's never the way that you expect it, but it's because of these 16 other things that you did prior to that this big opportunity comes your way.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, that story literally just exemplifies that exact thing. So that's actually kind of cool. So your book came to be almost out of necessity. You were like, oh crap, I got to give this speech. I guess I should start writing it out. Man, I wrote so much. I guess I should put this into a book.
Well, the joke's on me because the group that I originally intended to start it for never actually existed. Never started. If you ask me, it was never about the group, right? So my book is faith-based. They're devotionals. And so I use a lot of Bible verse references in them. And, I am, a firm believer that, God is in control, has a plan, all these things, right? And he knew the desire of my heart. He knew I wanted to be in women's ministry. But if God would have just been like, Emily, you should write a book, what would I have told him? I would have been like, God, I hate books. Like, I don't want to do this. This is dumb. Right. Like, so he doesn't come at it from that angle because he knows I'm going to say no. Right. But he knows that I want to do this other thing. And he's like, well, if you really want to do this, Emily, like you got to do the other thing first and you need to start writing. So yeah, funny how that works. Right.
Exactly. It's always like this windy, worvy path. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, how did I get here?
Exactly.
for me, it's funny. I've written 2 books so far. My first book, I actually wrote as kind of a competition. So this is my first book. I wrote it at 21 years old. And I wrote it because I had somebody else who I knew who had written a book. And I was like, you ain't going to be the only one that writes a book. And so that's how that one came to be. And then the second one was kind of almost more along the lines of what you did. I started blogging right after I wrote my first book. And my second book is just a collection of those blogs. It's literally just all of them kind of thrown together inside of this cover. So other than authoring, other than writing, what else is it that Emily does throughout her day?
Yeah, well, I mentioned I do some advocacy work. So I'm on the board of a nonprofit, Reveal to Heal International. It's a faith-based nonprofit that works with, being a resource for survivors of sexual assault. So that's a big part of my heart. I also I'm a youth group leader. So I work with teenagers at the church that I go to. And when it's nice enough outside, I play some sports, soccer, softball, and drink a lot of coffee.
When there's not 8 inches of snow outside, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Oh, man, I love it. This is so cool. I love the fact that the mediums like this, it allows me and anybody to really interact with people kind of all across the world, regardless of what's going on. It doesn't matter if there's snow outside, if it's bright and sunny, or wherever they're at in the world. So what do you do now? In terms of like book sales and that kind of stuff, like talk to for a minute, because we have a couple people joining in here, but talk to the people who have never written a book, but they want to write a book. What is that process like? How does it look? Or at least how did it look for you?
Which part of it? There's a lot.
Well, I guess we should just do it in order and go with the before, during, and after kind of phase. So start us off before. So is it just a matter of sitting down and writing and disciplining yourself, or is there something else to it?
Oh, absolutely. For me, it is. When people ask me what the secret is, I'm like, I got myself into a chair, sitting down. Most of the time when I write, I don't put pen to paper for at least an hour. It's more just like I'm trying to gather my thoughts, and in my head, things have to sound right before I actually write them down. So, for the first hour or so is really just like, for me, thought and meditation and praying, like, where is this lesson going, sort of thing. And then the words start to come, but it's definitely not immediate for me. And for me, I'm happy when I get like 500 words down in a night. I know some authors who can write 4,000 in an hour, and I'm just like, you're crazy. Like,
not me.
No, not me either.
I leverage all the resources I can to write now, because I realized after writing my first 2 books, I'm like, look, I can write a book, but it's going to take me 7.5 years to finish it. Or I can hire other people to help me with this, and it'll take me 6 months. So that's the route that I do now, going with my books. So what about all the other stuff, like, designing the cover, putting all the pieces together? Do you kind of handle that yourself too, or how does that look for someone who's never written a book before?
Well, the publisher designed the cover, so I didn't do that. I'm more just like blurting the thoughts out of like what the overall theme is. So, for example, I'll show you the cover for the second one here. So we have kind of these broken pieces coming together into these birds, right? And so the main theme of the second book, okay. So I guess for me, one of the keys to writing a book is like, what is the why behind it, right? So for me, it's, I want people to know the truth. And with the mindset that when we know the truth will set us free, right? So that we live in a very broken and, condemned world. And, there's a lot of opportunity for freedom from that. And so, the first book is more what is true about me. How does God see me? Like, I am lovable, I am capable, I am smart, those kinds of things. And then the second book is how do I see others? And you actually hit a couple of the chapter titles when you were introducing me without even noticing it. But you mentioned accepting people and welcoming them. So acceptance and welcoming, 2 of the chapters titles in volume 2. And really the main theme of it is that when I see others as God sees them, it unites us. And when I see others the way the world tells me to, it divides us, right? So it's this contrast of unity and division. And so that's kind of where we get these broken pieces coming together and uniting, right? Like, how do I see these pieces as, not broken, but whole, human beings that have worth and value, right?
Yeah.
So, if you ask me, the power of unity really is in our hands. Like, it's our choice of whether we want to value people, how we value them, right?
So who is this book right for? Who would be the kind of people that you want to pick up your book and start reading it? Besides everybody, because I know we all want everybody to read our books.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of biblical references in it. It's very faith-based. So I don't think you have to be a believer or a Christian to read the book, but you definitely have to be open to it being truth, if that makes sense. And, for me, and one of the times that it was the hardest to value myself was after being a survivor of sexual assault myself. And it was really people seeing value in me and seeing me in a way that I didn't know how to see myself, that it completely changed my life. And so it's really, do you want to be that kind of person or not? Right? Like, it's something we're all capable of. It's not rocket science. Like, we all know what it means to, like, what acceptance means and what welcoming means and belonging, right? Like, the book really isn't teaching these new revolutionary concepts. It's more, how do I apply them and be the kind of person who emulates these characteristics in a tangible way? For me, my personal favorite book of the Bible is James, and James says that faith without action is dead. So I'm a very show it, action-based person. And I think our world could use a little bit more of that.
I love that. Absolutely. I forget the exact quote, but I had Alex Stern on my show, who was the creator of Constant Contact. And he said that, I think it's the only difference between an idea and a business is implementation in it. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. So it's definitely, along the same lines of what you're saying here. All right. So we disciplined ourselves. We got the book out, right? It's all written. It's all published. Now what the heck do we do? How do we get this thing off of the shelves and into the reader's hands? Talk to someone about that.
Well, that part's my favorite part because I'm the token extrovert author. Oh man, I could talk to people about my book all day. It's the writing part that I have to be more disciplined about. I don't know, things look a little bit different now. When I launched my first book, I actually went on like an actual book tour, and I did book signings at Barnes and Nobles in 8 different states. So I was traveling to a different state almost every weekend, and it was a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I guess there's not much of those anymore.
Yeah. I did have a few in 2020 that got canceled. I haven't quite gotten to the point in my book launch where I'm reaching out to bookstores yet, but I definitely will be soon. Because we got about 4 months. And for me, most of the book signings I got the first time around, I booked like 5 to 6 weeks in advance. So it really wasn't that far of notice. I don't know how much of that's changed this time around, but yeah.
I love that. Perfect. So now we got someone on here who's brand new. They want to write a book. All they got to do is sit down and discipline themselves and then reach out for book signings and speaking engagements and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and get a good publisher in the middle.
I think really if you own what you're doing and you are passionate about the message, people buy into that, right? Like people are buying your book because they want to support you, like personally, right? So it's more connecting with people, relating to them, seeing them as valued, important, right? And that you have something that can, benefit them. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because a lot of people ask me when I tell them to come on this show, they ask me, well, what are you going to ask me? And I said, I have no idea. We're going to kind of have fun. But I said, if you know your own story and you tell the truth, you'll be fine. And I do the same thing with everything. I mean, most of my book, I have a book coming out. It's called Make Money and Have Fun, if you couldn't tell, as all of my other stuff is. And a lot of it is really just my life story. It's just talking about the different people that I've met, the different, businesses that I've built, the businesses that have crashed, and, just everything that I've kind of been through and how it landed me here into what I'm doing every single day. So I definitely agree with that. I definitely resonate with it. So Emily, how can people get in touch with you? How can they pick up a copy of your book? What's the best way for them to find out some more information?
Yeah. So, like I said, Broken Lenses, the first book was released in 2019. So that is available in bookstores everywhere, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, Target, wherever. And Broken Lenses Volume 2 does not release publicly until June 8th is the paperback release date. But as far as getting in contact with me, I have a website. It's emilybernathauthor.com. And then social media wise, I'm probably the most active on Instagram, which is at Emily Bernath Author. But I do have author Facebook and Twitter pages, and my Twitter is just at Emily Bernath. So, yeah.
All right, there we go. I think I got everything.
Yes.
Right. All right, so we got Instagram is the best place to reach out to you. We got our website.
And this ebook release 1 month from today, which is a short month because it's February.
Exactly, and it's author month. It's the best month ever.
Is it?
Yeah, this month is officially author month, at least for me, because I'm going live with different authors every single day of the month. So make sure you're here checking us out, giving us some support, showing us some love, giving us some thumbs up, and the wow faces. The wow faces are fun ones. There's some fun emojis that we can do on Facebook and on Instagram. Emily, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome stuff. Did you have a blast?
Of course. Yeah, I always have fun.
Absolutely. Well, I actually do 2 things. I make money.
Well, you make money and have fun.
Exactly. You gotta have both.
You're right.
You can't just have one or the other, because if you have fun with no money, then that fun won't last. That's fun with an expiration date. And same thing on the opposite side. If you're making money but you're miserable, what the heck's the point of the money?
Oh, absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
I love it. So get in touch with Emily, reach out to her, buy her book on her website, on Amazon, anywhere that books are sold. And we will be seeing you again very soon, Emily. Emily, best of luck on your book launch
Thank
this
you.
spring.
Likewise.
And we will see you guys very soon. Have a good one.